Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fluent English Hub. If you're learning English and sometimes feel that you understand more than you can speak, this episode is for you. Maybe you can understand YouTube videos, simple podcasts, or conversations in English. Maybe you know many words, but when someone suddenly speaks to you, your mind becomes completely empty. Don't worry, you're not alone. Today, you're going to listen to a story about a young man named Alex who had exactly the same problem. Listen carefully, but don't worry about understanding every single word. Focus on the story, notice the expressions, and let your English improve naturally. Now, let's begin. Alex had been learning English for almost 3 years. He had studied grammar. He had memorized hundreds of words. He had watched English videos. He had even downloaded several English learning apps. But there was one thing he still couldn't do comfortably. He couldn't speak. Whenever he was alone, English seemed easy. He could understand sentences. He could repeat phrases. Sometimes he even thought in English. But when another person started speaking to him, everything changed. His confidence disappeared. His mind became quiet. And suddenly, even the easiest words seemed difficult. One Monday morning, Alex arrived at work earlier than usual. He made a cup of coffee, sat at his desk, and opened his computer. A few minutes later, his manager walked into the office. "Alex, I have something for you," she said. Alex looked up. "What is it?" "We have an international client visiting tomorrow. I'd like you to help during the meeting." Alex stopped smiling. "Me? Yes. You know the project better than anyone on the team." Alex wanted to say yes immediately, but fear appeared in his mind. What if I can't understand them? What if they speak too fast? What if I make a mistake? His manager noticed that he was nervous. She smiled and said, "You don't need perfect English. You just need to communicate." Those words stayed in Alex's mind for the rest of the day. That evening, he went home and started preparing. He didn't spend hours studying difficult grammar. Instead, he practiced useful sentences. "Could you please repeat that?" "Let me explain." "That's a good question." "I agree with you." "Could you give me a moment to think?" "I understand what you mean." He repeated each sentence several times. Slowly. Clearly. He wasn't trying to sound like a native speaker. He was trying to sound confident and understandable. The next morning, Alex arrived at the office early. The meeting started at 10 o'clock. At first, everything was fine. The client introduced himself. Alex listened carefully. He understood most of what the man was saying. Then the client looked at him and asked, "Alex, could you tell us how this system works?" Alex's heart started beating faster. For 2 seconds he said nothing. He knew the answer. He had explained the system many times before, but now he had to explain it in English. He took a slow breath. "Sure," he said. "The system is designed to make the process easier. First, the customer enters their information. Then our team checks the details and sends a confirmation." He stopped. Nobody interrupted him. The client nodded. "That makes sense. And how long does the process usually take?" Alex answered. "It normally takes about 2 or 3 days." Another question came. Then another. Alex made mistakes. He forgot a word. He pronounced one sentence incorrectly. But he continued. And something surprising happened. The meeting went well. Nobody expected perfect English from him. They simply wanted to understand his ideas. When the meeting ended, Alex walked back to his desk. He sat down and smiled. For years, he had believed that he needed to become fluent before speaking. But that day, he discovered something important. You don't become confident and then start speaking. You start speaking, and confidence grows from there. That evening, Alex wrote a sentence in his notebook. "I don't need perfect English. I need real practice." He decided to change the way he learned English. Before, he spent most of his time studying grammar rules. Now, he wanted to spend more time using the language. Every morning, he listened to English for 15 minutes. He listened while drinking coffee. During his lunch break, he learned a few useful expressions. In the evening, he spoke out loud for 10 minutes. Sometimes he described his day. Sometimes he talked about his plans. Sometimes he simply explained what he could see around him. It felt strange at first, but after a few weeks, it became normal. He also stopped translating every sentence. When he heard a new word, he tried to understand it from the situation. For example, if he heard someone say, "I'm exhausted after a long day at work," he didn't immediately translate the word exhausted. He looked at the situation. The person had worked all day. The person was tired. So Alex understood the meaning naturally. This helped him listen faster. He began to recognize common expressions instead of individual words. He noticed that native speakers often used groups of words together. Instead of learning only the word decision, he learned make a decision. Instead of only learning interested, he learned I'm interested in. Instead of only learning look, he learned let's take a look. These small changes made his English sound more natural. But Alex still had difficult days. Sometimes he listened to a podcast and understood almost nothing. Sometimes he tried to speak and made many mistakes. Sometimes he compared himself with advanced speakers and felt disappointed. One evening, he almost gave up. He closed his notebook and said, "Maybe I'm just not good at languages." Then he remembered his first English lesson. He remembered how little he could understand. He remembered how nervous he was. And then he realized something. He had already improved. He simply couldn't see all the progress because he was always looking at the next level. So he opened his notebook again. At the top of a new page he wrote, "Look back, not only forward." From that day, he started measuring his progress differently. Instead of asking, "Am I fluent yet?" he asked, "Do I understand more than I did last month?" Instead of asking, "Can I speak perfectly?" he asked, "Can I communicate better than before?" The answers were yes. And that was enough. Months later, Alex received another opportunity. His company wanted someone to give a short presentation to an international team. This time, Alex didn't feel the same fear. He was still nervous. But nervousness was no longer a reason to stop. He prepared. He practiced. He listened. And when the day arrived, he stood in front of the group and began. His English wasn't perfect, but his message was clear. He spoke naturally. He paused when he needed time. He asked questions. He answered questions. And when he didn't understand something, he simply said, "Could you please say that again?" There was no shame in asking. There was no reason to pretend. He was communicating. After the presentation, one of his colleagues came to him. "You've improved a lot," she said. Alex smiled. "Thank you." What's your secret? Alex thought for a moment. Then he answered, I stopped being afraid of mistakes. That was his secret. Not a special app, not a magic grammar book, not a perfect accent. He simply stopped waiting for perfect English. He learned to use the English he already had. And then he slowly built more. If you're listening to this right now and you feel the same way, remember Alex's story. You don't need to know every word. You don't need perfect grammar. You don't need a perfect accent. You don't even need to speak quickly. You need to keep listening, keep practicing, keep speaking, and keep giving yourself permission to make mistakes. Because mistakes are not proof that you are bad at English. They are proof that you are using English. Every sentence you understand is progress. Every new expression you remember is progress. Every conversation you attempt is progress. And every time you choose to continue instead of giving up, you are becoming a stronger English learner. So don't ask yourself, when will I finally become fluent? Ask yourself, what can I practice today? Maybe today you can listen for 15 minutes. Maybe you can learn 5 useful expressions. Maybe you can speak to yourself for 10 minutes. Maybe you can repeat a short conversation. It doesn't have to be a huge step. A small step is still a step. And if you take small steps every day, one day you'll look back and realize that you have traveled much farther than you thought. Thank you so much for spending your time with me here at Fluent English Hub. I truly hope this listening practice helped you improve your English and, more importantly, gave you a little more confidence. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give the video a like and subscribe to Fluent English Hub for more natural English listening stories, useful vocabulary, and speaking practice. Keep listening. Keep practicing. Keep believing in your progress. And remember, you don't have to be perfect to speak English. You just have to be brave enough to start. I'll see you in the next lesson.